Imagine being trapped on a cruise ship with your husband and his mistress, and realizing the only way off is to make sure he doesn't make it back on. My husband booked 2 cabins for our family cruise. He told me the second one was for a business associate. The associate turned out to be wearing my anniversary perfume. By the last night at sea, the joint account that left port with $186,000 had exactly one name left on it. Mine. He just didn't know it yet. I didn't scream when I figured out what he'd done. I poured my coffee, sat down across from him, and started planning. My name is Katherine Sanders. I'm 41 years old, and for 16 years I packed that man's lunches, signed his birthday cards, and believed associate meant a person you worked with. The part nobody warned me about wasn't the perfume. It was the email that landed at 6 in the morning, 3 weeks before we ever boarded. By the end, you'll know the exact moment I stopped being his wife and became the only signature on his ticket home, and the name printed in the cabin he was sure I'd never see. It came as an itinerary. 2 cabins under the Sanders reservation. I only booked one. I set his coffee by his laptop and kept my voice flat. Big news. Christopher looked up too fast. Just a work thing. Finally said yes to the cruise. Family time. For 9 years he'd called cruises floating buffets for people with nothing better to do. Now suddenly he wanted family time. The second cabin was registered to a J. Waverly, +1. I wrote the name on a sticky note and put it in my wallet. That night he booked a couple's massage, not for us. I found the confirmation in his sent folder. Mr. and guest. I made his favorite dinner and asked how work was. He said busy. The next morning his phone buzzed on the counter while he showered. A text, can't wait. Same as last time, no name, just a heart. I didn't pick it up. I poured cereal and watched it light up 2 more times. And he had no idea the sunset was the last easy night he'd ever toast. Hit like and subscribe so you don't miss the ending, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Came down whistling. He never whistles. 16 years and the man whistled past me like I was furniture. You seem happy, I said. New chapter, he said. He kissed my forehead. He hadn't kissed my forehead since his mother's funeral, so I started a chapter of my own. I called Carol Whitfield that afternoon. Carol does family law in Hartwell, and she's been my friend since college. I told her about the second cabin and the heart text. Don't confront him, she said. Don't change a thing. People who feel safe get sloppy. Let him get sloppy. I asked her if that felt wrong, quietly setting a trap on a man I'd shared a bed with for 16 years. She said the trap was his. I was just letting the door stay open. So I smiled. I packed. I bought a new sundress and let him see the receipt. The week before we sailed, the violations came fast. He borrowed $4,000 from our joint account for shore excursions. He upgraded his own cabin amenities and left mine at standard. He told my sister we were celebrating, then told his golf buddy he needed a break from all of it. All of it meaning me. He left his laptop open one night. I didn't snoop. I didn't have to. The browser was right there. A spa package, 2 robes, monogrammed, C and J again. Always J. I screenshotted everything and sent it to Carol. She called me back in an hour. He's draining the travel fund for her, she said. That account is half yours. Every dollar he spends on this woman, he's spending your money. Then I want it back, I said, all of it. Then we do this clean, on paper. While he's bragging on a deck, you're moving. The day we boarded, I learned the woman's first name. We rolled our bags up to the cruise terminal in Hartwell, and there she was, tall, sundress nicer than mine. She walked straight up to Christopher and put a hand on his arm like she'd done it 100 times. You must be Katherine, she said. I'm Janet, Janet Waverly. Chris talks about you all the time. Chris, 16 years, and I never once called him Chris. He talks about you too, I said, or at least your initial does. She blinked. Christopher jumped in. Janet's a consultant. She's helping me with a deal. I told you, the work thing. Of course, I said, the work thing. The whole boarding line heard him introduce his mistress as a business associate. My sister was 4 feet away holding a boarding pass. She gave me a look. I gave her nothing back. The trap only works if it stays invisible. Janet's cabin key worked on the door next to ours. Funny placement for a consultant. We hadn't even left port and the small things started piling up. She used the family drink package, the one under his name, paid from our account to order 2 cocktails before noon. She took my deck chair, the one with my book on it, and handed my book to a steward like it was trash. She borrowed Christopher's phone charger from our cabin without asking, and I found it in hers when housekeeping left the door open. At the welcome lunch, Christopher ordered the seafood tower for the table, then quietly told the waiter to put the special bottle on the Sanders tab and serve it only to his guest. I watched a $400 bottle of champagne travel past my plate and land in front of Janet. She raised it at me. To new friends. To honesty, I said, and drank water. Then she asked the waiter for my entree, the one already set in front of me. She's not really eating, Janet said, and waved at my plate. The waiter looked at me. I slid it across. Let her have it. Let her get sloppy. My sister watched the whole thing. She started to stand. I caught her wrist under the table and shook my head. Not yet. The next morning, Janet ordered breakfast to the Sanders cabin and had it delivered to hers. Eggs, lobster, a bottle of juice that cost more than a tank of gas. The charge hit our account by 9. I took a screenshot before the page even finished loading. At the pool, she draped Christopher's towel over 2 loungers and told a family with kids the seats were reserved for the Sanders party. Then she looked right at me and added, "Not you, hun, the other Sanders." I smiled and walked away. Carol's voice was in my head. People who feel safe get sloppy. That afternoon, he announced to my sister and her husband that he'd treated everyone to the luxury excursion package. Everyone except me. My name wasn't on the list. I checked at the desk. Mr. Sanders said 4 guests, the clerk told me. You weren't one of them. So the man put his mistress on the excursion and left his wife off the manifest, with my money. When they got back, Janet had 3 shopping bags and Christopher had the receipt. He'd bought her a bracelet at the Port Jeweler. $2,200 charged to the joint card. I know because the text alert came to my phone since the account was in both our names. He forgot that part. He forgot a lot of parts. That night he asked me to spot him for the casino. I asked how much. Just put $5,000 on the card, I'm good for it. I said the card was maxing out. He frowned like that was my fault. Then move money over from savings. I told him I'd look into it. I did look into it, just not the way he meant. I didn't argue. I went back to the cabin, opened my laptop, and connected to the ship's satellite internet. Carol had set up everything in advance. A new account, mine alone, protected. I logged into the joint travel fund. The balance glowed back at me. $182,000 after his little spree. I didn't move it yet. Carol said wait for the gala. Wait until he's standing in a tuxedo telling everyone what a generous man he is. Wait until the exact moment he feels most untouchable. So I closed the laptop and went to dinner. Janet was at our table, in my seat. Christopher had moved my place card to the far end, next to a retired couple from Ohio. He sat Janet at his right hand and called her indispensable in front of my sister. My sister leaned over to me. Kath. What is happening? Watch, I whispered. Just watch. Janet ordered the most expensive entree twice, one to eat, one to try. She sent back the wine because it wasn't cold enough. She told the waiter her husband had a sensitive palate and pointed at Christopher. He laughed. He didn't correct her. Husband. She called him her husband at a table 4 seats from his wife. I set my fork down. The retired man from Ohio noticed and asked if I was all right. Never better, I said. And I meant it, because right then I knew exactly how this cruise was going to end. After dinner, Christopher found me on the deck. He was loose with wine and pleased with himself. You're being a good sport, he said. About Janet, the work stuff. I'm full of surprises, I said. He squeezed my shoulder. That's my girl, 3 more ports. Gonna be the best week of my life. He had no idea how right he was about it being a week that changed his life. He just had the direction wrong. He went back inside to buy Janet a nightcap on our tab. I stayed on the deck and called Carol on the satellite line. The signal held. He left me off the excursion, I told her. Seated her in my chair, she's calling him her husband. Save all of it, Carol said. Screenshots, the manifest, the bar receipts under your account number. Every dollar he moves toward her is evidence, and it's also yours to take back. When do I move the money? Gala night, she said. And there's one more thing. I made a call to the cruise line's guest services this morning on your authority as the primary booking holder. Turns out the primary holder controls the return boarding credentials for every guest on the reservation. I went quiet, meaning his ticket home, Carol said, is yours to keep, or not. I looked out at the black water and the lights of Hartwell sinking behind us. Down the deck, through the glass, I could see Christopher laughing with Janet, two champagne flutes catching the light, the whole picture of a man who thought he'd gotten away with it. He raised his glass toward the sunset and mouthed something to her. I raised my water to the same sunset and mouthed something back to no one. Goodbye. The second morning at sea, Janet wore my robe, not one like mine. Mine, the white one with my initials on the pocket, the one I'd left hanging in our cabin. She walked it down to the breakfast buffet, sat at the captain's welcome table, and let everyone admire the little KW stitched in gold. Cute monogram, a woman said. Old family thing, Janet told her. She didn't even know what the letters stood for. I went back to the cabin. My robe was gone off the hook. Christopher was on the balcony in his swim trunks on the phone. She doesn't suspect a thing, he was saying. 16 years, she's basically wallpaper. Just keep your stuff in your cabin during the day. I stood very still by the door. He hung up and turned around and saw me. How long were you there? He asked. Long enough to hear you call me wallpaper. He laughed, he actually laughed. It's an expression, don't be sensitive. I didn't answer. I picked up his phone off the railing while it was still unlocked, and I read the last 3 texts before he snatched it back. They were all to Janet. One was a hotel reservation in the final port, a suite, for 2, for after the cruise. Give me my phone, he said. It's our phone plan, I said. I pay it. He grabbed it anyway, but I'd already seen the hotel name. I wrote it on the same sticky note as Janet's. At lunch, he picked a fight about money in front of everyone. The card got declined at the spa, he said loud. You said you'd handle the account. The account's fine, I said. Then why'd it decline? It declined because I'd moved our savings into a holding account Carol set up the day before we sailed. Quietly, just enough to make his big spends bounce while the joint travel fund stayed full and visible like bait. But I didn't say that. I said the bank flags large charges abroad. He bought it. He always thought I was too simple to lie. Janet leaned across him. Maybe if your wife managed the finances better, this trip wouldn't be so stressful for you, babe. Babe in front of my sister, in front of the Ohio couple, my sister's husband put down his fork. Excuse me. It's fine, I said. Janet's just helping with the budget. She's an associate. Christopher's jaw tightened. He knew I'd said it like a knife, but he couldn't react without explaining what she really was. So he smiled and ordered another bottle on the tab. That afternoon, the violations came one after another. Janet used our cabin shower because hers smelled like chlorine. She left makeup smeared on my towel and my good face cream open and dripping on the counter. She took my phone charger this time, not his, and I found it in her purse when she set the bag on a deck chair to swim. She ordered room service to our cabin and signed Christopher's name. Shrimp cocktail, 2 desserts, a bottle of rosé. The tray sat outside our door for 3 hours. When I moved it, she opened her cabin and said, "Oh good, you got it. Bring it in." I left it in the hallway. A steward took it away. The charge stayed. At the pool bar, she ran a tab for the Sanders party and bought drinks for 4 strangers she'd just met. $80 on us. She toasted to my generous Chris, and the strangers cheered a man who wasn't even there. I sat at the far end with a club soda and a notebook and wrote down every charge. Time, amount, item. Carol told me a judge likes a timeline. I gave her a timeline. Then Janet found my notebook on the chair when I went to the railing. She picked it up and flipped through it. "What's this, your little diary?" she called out. A few people looked over. I walked back and took it from her hand calm. "Grocery list," I said. "Boring stuff, you'd hate it." "You're a strange one," she said. "You have no idea," I said, and put the notebook in my bag where it stayed for the rest of the trip. Christopher came by the bar an hour later and asked me to be nice to Janet. Be nice. To the woman wearing my robe and spending my mortgage. "I'm being lovely," I said. "You're being weird," he said. "Quiet weird, I know that look." "You don't know any of my looks," I said. He didn't have an answer for that. He went back to the pool. That night was the worst of it, and it was the night I stopped feeling anything but cold. There was a deck party. String lights, a band, the whole thing. Christopher danced with Janet in front of everybody. Spun her, dipped her. My sister stood next to me gripping her wine so hard I thought the glass would crack. "Kath, I can't watch this," she said. "Say something, throw the drink, anything." "If I throw the drink," I said, "he wins. He gets to call me crazy, he gets to comfort her. No." Then what are you going to do? I looked at Christopher spinning his mistress under the lights, both of them laughing, both of them drunk on a vacation I was paying for. I'm going to let him have the best week of his life, I said. And then I'm going to take everything else. She stared at me, then slowly she nodded. Janet came off the dance floor flushed and breathless and walked straight to me. He's such a good dancer, she said. You should really learn. He says you two never dance. We don't, I said. He says a lot of things about you, actually. She smiled. I almost feel bad, almost. Don't, I said. I never feel bad about people who don't see what's coming. She laughed like I'd made a joke. She didn't get it. That was the point. The band stopped. Christopher tapped a glass and made a toast. To family, he said, raising his champagne, looking right at Janet. To the people who really get you. Everyone clapped, my sister didn't. The Ohio man looked at his shoes. I clapped, slow and even, long enough that Christopher's smile flickered. He didn't know why it bothered him, he just felt it. Later, he stumbled back to the cabin smelling like rum and her perfume. Good party, huh? He slurred. See, family time, told you you'd love it. I'm having the time of my life, I said, and it was true. He kicked off his shoes and left them where my feet would find them at 3 a.m. He'd done it for 16 years. Tonight, I just stepped over them and smiled. Janet thinks we should get separate cabins for the last 2 nights, he mumbled into the pillow. Give everybody space. You'd be okay with that, right? You like your space. So now he was trying to move me out of my own cabin so he could move her in, on my booking, on my dime. Whatever you need, I said. Take the last 2 nights. I'll be just fine on my own. He didn't hear the second meaning. He never did. He flopped on the bed. Tomorrow's the gala, big night. Wear the blue thing. Janet says blue washes you out, but I told her wear it anyway. So now my mistress was picking my outfits. I hung up the blue dress, I'd wear it. The gala was the night everything moved. He passed out in 90 seconds. I took his phone off the nightstand. Thumb still unlocked it from the table earlier. I'd changed the autolock to never that morning while he showered. Sloppy people don't notice settings. I opened his banking app. I read the alerts he'd ignored. 3 overdraft warnings on his personal card. A loan he'd taken out against the house, our house, that I never signed for. $40,000 in April. For what, the app didn't say. But the transfer the next day went to a J. Waverly. I sat on the edge of the bathtub with his phone glowing in my lap. He'd borrowed against our home and handed it to her. In April. 2 months before he ever mentioned a cruise. This wasn't a fling that started on the ship. This had been running for months under my roof on my mortgage. I photographed every screen. I emailed them to myself and to Carol. Then I put his phone back exactly where it was, screen down, the way he left it. In the morning, I called Carol from the balcony while he snored. $40,000 against the house, I told her. Sent to Janet in April. Carol went quiet. Then, Katherine, that changes the number. That's not a vacation he stole. That's your home equity. He fraudulently encumbered marital property. What does that mean for tonight? It means when you move the travel fund, you're not being petty. You're recovering. Every dollar in that account is yours by right now and probably more. She paused. You still want to do this clean? On the ship. I looked out at the water. Calm, flat, endless. I want to do it at the gala, I said. While he's toasting, while she's wearing something I paid for. I want him to feel like the richest man in the room at the exact second he stops being able to afford the room. Then tonight's the night, Carol said. Wait for guest services to open after dinner. I'll have the paperwork ready on my end. When you log in, don't hesitate. Empty it, all of it. Then come find me on the phone and we handle his ticket home. His ticket home, I repeated. You're the primary holder, she said. His boarding credentials live under your reservation. You can suspend them tonight. He won't know until he tries to reboard after the final port. I hung up and went back inside. Christopher was awake, sitting up, holding his phone. Hey, he said slowly, were you on my phone last night? My heart did not move. Why would I want your phone? I can barely stand to look at your face. He studied me. For one long second I thought he saw it. Then he laughed and stretched. Fair. God, I love that you don't care. Makes everything easier. He went to shower. I heard him start singing. I opened the closet and took out the blue dress. I laid it on the bed. Then I sat down with my own laptop, opened the joint travel fund one more time and looked at the number glowing back at me. $182,000. By tonight it would be in an account with one name on it. Mine. And he would toast the sunset and never feel the floor go out from under him until the ship was already pulling away. The gala started at 8. By 8:15, Janet was wearing my earrings. The diamond drops Christopher gave me for our 10th anniversary. I'd left them in the cabin safe. The safe with the 4-digit code that was our wedding date, because of course he gave her the code. She walked into the ballroom on his arm, my diamonds swinging from her ears, and she found me by the bar. "He said you wouldn't mind," she said. "You weren't going to wear them anyway." "Keep them on," I said. "They look perfect on you tonight." She smiled, pleased. She thought she'd won something. She had no idea what she'd just put on. Christopher was glowing. Tuxedo, fresh shave, a man at the peak of his own movie. He pulled me aside near the dessert table. "Listen," he said, "tonight I'm doing a toast. Big one, the whole ballroom. I want you to clap, okay? Be normal for the family." "I wouldn't miss your toast for anything," I said. He kissed my cheek and went to work the room. I watched him shake hands and buy rounds and tell a table of strangers that he believed in living big. $300 in champagne on the tab in 20 minutes. I logged each one in my phone under the table. Dinner came out in courses. Janet sent hers back twice. Wrong temperature, then wrong sauce. She told the waiter her husband had very particular standards and pointed her fork at Christopher. He beamed. My sister leaned in. "Earrings, Kath, she's wearing your earrings." "I see them," I said, "and you're just sitting there." "Watch the clock," I said, "not me." Janet wasn't done. She ordered the lobster, then decided she wanted the steak instead, and left the lobster sitting full and cold. She asked the waiter to bring a real bottle, not this, and named a champagne that cost $600. On the tab, our tab, she poured a glass for Christopher and none for me, then looked at my water and said, "Oh, are you not drinking?" Smart, calories. The Ohio woman across the table set down her fork very quietly. Then Janet asked me to switch seats so she could be closer to Chris for the toast. I moved. I moved down 2 chairs to the corner by the kids' table while my husband's mistress took the center seat in my earrings. My sister opened her mouth. I caught her eye and shook my head once. Let her sit in the middle. The middle is where everyone sees you when the lights come up. At 9, the band took a break and Christopher stood up with a microphone. The room went quiet. He tapped the glass. He looked out over a ballroom of strangers and family and the woman in my earrings. "I'm not a speech guy," he started, and everybody laughed because he absolutely is. "But this week's been the best of my life, and I just want to toast the people who make a man feel alive again, to new beginnings." He raised his glass toward Janet, not toward me, toward her. In front of my sister, the Ohio couple, 200 people. "To new beginnings," the room echoed. I lifted my glass with everyone else. Then, while 200 glasses were still in the air, I reached into my bag, opened my laptop on my knees under the tablecloth, and connected to the ship's internet. The signal was strong. Carol had tested it from shore. The page loaded. Joint travel fund. $182,000, available balance. There was a button. Transfer all. New account, one holder, mine, set up 9 days ago in a bank he'd never heard of. I didn't hesitate. Carol said, "Don't hesitate." I pressed it. Processing, a little wheel spun. Across the room, Christopher was hugging Janet, both of them laughing, the diamonds catching the light. Transfer complete. New balance, $0. I closed the laptop. I set down my glass. I had never felt so calm in my life. He came back to the table flushed and triumphant. "Did you see their faces? They loved it. That's how you command a room." "You commanded it," I said. "Nobody will forget tonight." He didn't catch it. He grabbed Janet and they went to dance. I excused myself and walked out onto the deck. I called Carol. She picked up on the first ring. "It's done," I said. "The fund's empty. It's in the new account." "Good," Carol said. "Now guest services. The deck below the ballroom, the night desk. You're the primary holder. You're going to suspend the return boarding credentials for the second guest and the additional cabin. Calm, routine, like it's nothing." I went down one deck. The guest services desk was quiet. A young man in a white uniform smiled. "I need to make a change to my reservation," I said. "I'm Katherine Sanders, primary holder." He pulled it up. "Yes, Mrs. Sanders." "What can I do?" "There's a second guest under my booking. J. Waverly. And the additional cabin. I need to remove their reboarding privileges after the final port. They'll be staying ashore. He read the screen. I can do that. The guest and the additional cabin will be marked as final port disembarkation. They won't be permitted back aboard once they go ashore at the last stop. You're certain? Completely, I said. And the primary male guest, Mr. Sanders. I looked at him. Carol had told me the choice would come. I'd already made it on the deck 3 nights ago, watching him spin her under the lights. Same, I said. Final port disembarkation. He won't be reboarding either. The young man typed. Done, all 3 are flagged. Boarding credentials suspended after the final port. Is there anything else? No, I said, that's everything. I went back up to the gala. Christopher was at the bar trying to buy a bottle of cognac for the whole party. The bartender swiped his card, paused, swiped again. I'm sorry, sir, it's declining. Christopher laughed. Try it again, there's plenty on there. Declined. The bartender tried a second card. Declined. A third. Declined. Janet's smile started to slip. Babe, just use the room account. Put it on the cabin, Christopher told the bartender. Sanders, sweet tab. The bartender checked. I'm sorry, sir. The travel account on the booking shows a 0 balance. That's impossible, Christopher snapped. There's 180,000 on that account. It's showing 0, sir. He pulled out his phone. He opened the banking app right there at the bar. I watched his face from across the room. I watched it change. He scrolled. He refreshed. He scrolled again. The blood went out of his cheeks. Where's the money? He said, not loud yet. Where's the money? Where is it? Janet touched his arm. Chris, what's wrong? It's gone. The account's empty. 180 grand. It's just... He looked up. He found me across the ballroom. I lifted my glass to him. The same slow toast he'd given me, to new beginnings. He pushed through the crowd. He grabbed my arm. What did you do? He said, low and shaking. What did you do, Katherine? I managed the finances, I said. You said I should handle the account, so I handled it. That's our money. It was our money, I said. Now it's recovering from the 40,000 you took against our house in April. Funny, I don't remember signing for that. His face cracked. He didn't know I knew. He let go of my arm. You can't prove anything, he whispered. I don't have to prove it to you, I said. I have a lawyer for that, you remember Carol. Janet had followed him over. What's going on, Chris, who's Carol? Go back to the table, Janet, he said. Don't talk to me like that. Go back to the table. The whole bar heard it. The Ohio man heard it. My sister was already standing, watching, a slow smile spreading across her face for the first time all week. Christopher turned back to me, sweating now. Move it back, tonight, all of it, or I swear. Or what? I said. You'll strand me somewhere, you'll leave me with nothing. Take a breath, Christopher. You'll need it. He stood there in his tuxedo with 3 dead credit cards in his hand, and a mistress yelling his name and a wife who finally, calmly, wasn't afraid of him. Janet was still tugging his sleeve. Chris, the card got declined. I tried to buy the cognac. Is something wrong with the money? There's no money, Janet, he hissed. Do you understand? There's no money. Her face did something I'll remember forever. The warmth drained out of it like someone pulled a plug. What do you mean there's no money? She said slowly. You told me after the cruise we'd. Not now, he snapped. You promised me a suite, she said louder. You said it was handled. A few heads turned. The cracks were showing already, and we hadn't even docked. This isn't over, he said to me. No, I agreed. We've still got one more port. I set my empty glass on the bar and walked out. Behind me, I heard the bartender ask, politely, if anyone would be settling the tab. Nobody did. My sister caught up to me at the elevator. She was almost laughing, almost crying. Kath. The account, did you really? It's safe, I said. It's recovering. Carol has all of it on paper. And the earrings. She's wearing your diamonds, you just let her. She can wear them ashore tomorrow, I said. She's going to need something to sell. My sister stopped. What does that mean? It means tomorrow's the last port, I said. The elevator opened. I stepped in. And some people are getting off there. She didn't understand yet. She would. Back in the cabin, I packed quietly while Christopher was still down at the bar arguing with the manager about a tab he couldn't pay. I folded my own clothes into my own suitcase. His things I left exactly where they were, draped over chairs, kicked under the bed. Let him pack his own life for once. Then I sat on the balcony with a single glass of champagne, the cheap kind from the mini fridge, the kind I actually like, and I watched the dark water slide past. The phone rang once more before midnight. Carol. The fund cleared into the new account, she said. Untouchable now, and I confirmed with the cruise line on a recorded line, the disembarkation flags are locked. Nobody can reverse them but you, and only from your end. Get some sleep, Katherine. I'm not tired, I said. I haven't been this awake in years. Down the hall I could hear Christopher's voice rising, then Janet's, then both at once. The honeymoon was over and the ship hadn't even reached the final port. I finished my champagne and went to bed in the cabin that for one more night was still mine. At 6 in the morning, Christopher was pounding on the guest services desk. I know because I was standing one deck up, coffee in hand, watching over the railing. You have to reverse it, he was telling the young man in white. My wife moved money she had no right to move. That's theft. Call the captain. The young man stayed calm. Sir, the travel account is a shared account. Either holder can transfer the balance. There's nothing the ship can do about a banking matter between spouses. Then freeze it, freeze her cards. We can't freeze a guest's personal account, sir. Christopher slapped the counter. A family with 2 kids stepped wide around him. He didn't notice. He'd stopped noticing how he looked to other people. That was new. He came up the stairs and found me with my coffee. You think this is smart, he said. You think you've won. I'll have a lawyer on this the second we dock. You can't just steal 180 grand. Recover, I said, not steal. And I already have a lawyer. Her name's been on 3 of my texts this week. You were too busy reading Janet's to notice. He blinked. You've been planning this, the whole trip. You planned a second cabin, I said. I just planned a little further ahead. He changed tactics. His voice softened, the way it used to when he wanted something. Katherine, come on. 16 years, we can fix this. Janet's nothing, she's a mistake. I'll send her home at the next port and it's just us again. Move the money back and we forget the whole thing. So now I was the solution, now that the wallet was empty. Send her home at the next port, I repeated. That's a good idea, Christopher. I think she should get off at the next port. I really do. He thought I was agreeing. He smiled relieved. See, we're adults. We figure it out. We figure it out, I said. Go pack her bags. He hurried off to tell Janet the good news, that he'd smoothed it over. He hadn't smoothed over anything. He just walked himself one step closer to the pier. An hour later, Janet found me at breakfast. She sat down across from me uninvited and put her phone face down on the table. She was still wearing my earrings. Her eyes were red. He says you're going to give the money back, she said. He says it's all fine. Did he? I said. He told me you're being dramatic, that you do this, that you're unstable. I sipped my coffee. Janet, how long have you known him? She hesitated. 8 months. 8 months. And in 8 months, did he ever once mention I was unstable before last night, when he needed me to be? She didn't answer. He took $40,000 against my house in April, I said. Did you get a bracelet out of that? A sweet deposit? Because that was my home he borrowed against to impress you. Her hand went to the earrings without her thinking about it. He said the diamonds were his to give. They were a gift to me, I said, for 10 years of marriage. He gave them to you out of a safe with our wedding date as the code. You're not the first thing of mine he's handed you, just the shiniest. She took the earrings off. She set them on the table between us. Keep them, I said, and slid them back. Honestly, you earned them more than he ever did. Consider it severance. She stared at me. What do you mean, severance? I mean by tomorrow you and I will have something in common, I said. Enjoy the last port. She picked up her phone and walked away fast. I let her go. The seed was planted. People who feel safe get sloppy and people who feel scared get loud. I just made Janet scared. 10 minutes later, she did exactly what I expected. She started recording him. I saw her holding her phone low at the bar, filming Christopher as he argued with the bartender about another declined card. She was building her own little case. Smart girl. 8 months too late, but smart. He caught her at it. Are you filming me? Are you serious right now? I need proof, she said, for when this blows up. I'm not going down for your mess. Your mess, he laughed ugly. You're the mistress, sweetheart. You think anyone's going to feel sorry for you. She flinched like he'd slapped her. Then she looked across the bar, found me, and held my eyes for a long second. Something passed between us. Not friendship. Just two women looking at the same man and finally seeing the same thing. Janet didn't go quietly, though. An hour later, she tried to hurt me back. She cornered my sister by the pool and told her I was having some kind of breakdown and that Christopher was worried sick. My sister listened, nodded politely, then said, "Funny, you're wearing her earrings and you're worried about her?" Janet didn't have a reply for that. She walked off red-faced. Then she went to the front desk and tried to book a flight home on the cruise concierge, charged to the cabin. Declined. She tried the spa for a stress massage. Declined. Every door she pushed was the same door, and it was locked, and the lock had my name on it. She came back to find Christopher, and they had it out in the corridor. I heard you said money was no object, and you said your wife didn't matter. Two liars discovering the other one believed the lies. By lunch, they were fighting openly. I heard it through the cabin wall. Her voice, then his, then a door. Janet wanted to know why his cards didn't work. Christopher wanted to know why she was making this his problem. She said he promised her a future. He said he never promised anything in writing. In writing. That's the part he kept saying, like a man who just realized everything he'd done was provable and nothing he'd promised was. Carol called it too. The ship's signal crackled but held. "I filed this morning," she said. "Emergency motion to freeze the marital assets, given the fraudulent loan against the house." A judge granted a temporary order. He can't touch the home equity line anymore. And Katherine, the bank flagged the April transfer to Waverly as a possible fraudulent conveyance. That helps you enormously in the divorce. "There's more," Carol added. "I pulled the April loan documents. He forged your signature on the spousal consent form. That's not just a divorce problem now. That's a crime. I'm not saying we use it. I'm saying we have it." I went quiet for a second. 16 years, and he'd signed my name like it was his to sign. "We have it," I repeated. "Good." "He's telling people I stole from him," I said. "Let him." "Every word he says is unrecorded, and every move you made is documented. You kept the timeline. You kept the screenshots. You moved a shared account, which is legal. He encumbered a home without a spouse's signature, which is not. Stay calm and stay on the boat." "And tomorrow?" "Tomorrow is the last port," Carol said. "When they go ashore, the flags trigger. They won't be allowed back. The ship leaves on schedule at 5. You stay aboard as the primary holder. You don't have to do anything but let the clock run." "Let the clock run," I said. "I'm good at that now." That afternoon, Christopher tried one more thing. He found me on the upper deck, and he had a witness with him, a man from the cruise line, some assistant manager he'd cornered. "Tell her," Christopher said. "Tell her she has to give me access to the account." The manager looked uncomfortable. "Sir, I already explained, we have no authority over personal banking." She emptied $180,000. "From a joint account," I said pleasantly. "Both names, you can verify it, go ahead." The manager checked his tablet. "The account does list both holders, ma'am. Either party can transfer funds. There's no violation." Christopher's face went purple. He grabbed for my phone, the one with all the screenshots. I stepped back and the manager stepped between us. "Sir, I need you to keep your hands to yourself. She's destroying me." "Mr. Sanders, if you can't stay calm, I'll have to involve ship security." That stopped him, the word security. He let his hands drop. He looked at me over the manager's shoulder, and for the first time all trip, he looked afraid. "What do you want?" he said quietly. "Just tell me what you want." "Nothing," I said. "I already have it. It's in an account with my name on it, and it's growing interest while you stand here yelling." I walked past him to the railing. The coast of the final port was just coming into view on the horizon, green hills, a white town, a long stone pier reaching out into the blue. Hartwell was 2 days behind us now. Home felt like another life. In a way, it was. Christopher came up beside me at the railing, quieter now, almost begging. "Tomorrow," he said. "We dock tomorrow. Promise me we'll talk. Really talk. Me and you. Send Janet off and just give me one more chance, Kath." "We'll talk tomorrow," I said. "After you go ashore, I promise." He grabbed onto that. He thought it was hope. "You and me," he said. "We'll figure it out at the port." "At the port," I agreed. He squeezed my hand, relieved, and went off to tell Janet she'd be flying home alone, that he'd fixed it with Katherine. I stood at the railing and watched the white town get bigger. Somewhere down there was a stone pier where two people were going to do some shopping tomorrow, and a ship that was going to leave at 5 whether they were on it or not. I took out my phone and texted Carol 2 words. Tomorrow. Confirmed. Before I did, Janet knocked on my cabin door, just once. She stood in the hall holding her phone. He forged your name, she said. On something, I heard him on the call. He's scared of you, not angry. There's a difference and I just learned it. Why are you telling me this? I said. Because tomorrow he's taking me ashore to talk in private, she said. And something about the way he said it scared me. She paused. You'd tell me if I should be scared, wouldn't you? I looked at her standing there in my earrings, this woman who'd worn my robe and taken my chair and called him her husband. Go ashore tomorrow, I said gently. Do your shopping, take your time, don't rush back to the ship. She nodded slowly, not understanding, and went back down the hall. Then I went to finish packing the last of my things, while down the hall, Christopher started packing a suitcase he didn't know he'd be carrying off the ship for good. The ship docked at the final port at 9 in the morning. I was already up, already dressed, already watching from the balcony as the gangway lowered onto the long stone pier. The town was beautiful. White buildings climbing green hills, little shops along the water. A market with striped awnings, the kind of place people pay a fortune to see for one perfect day. Christopher knocked on the cabin door at 9:30. He'd showered, he'd shaved, he was wearing the linen shirt I bought him last summer. Okay, he said, all business now, all charm. Here's the plan, I'm taking Janet ashore, I'm going to end it. Tell her it's over, put her on a flight from the local airport, done. Then it's you and me for the sail home, we talk, we fix this. That sounds perfect, I said. He blinked. He'd expected a fight, really. Really? Go take her ashore, end it, take all the time you need. I smiled. I'll be right here when it's done. He exhaled, relieved, and he made the mistake of believing me one last time. I knew you'd come around, he said. 16 years, we don't throw that away. No, I said, we don't throw it away, we just dock it somewhere and leave. He didn't catch it. He kissed my forehead, the second forehead kiss of the whole trip, both of them lies, and went to collect Janet. I watched them from the balcony 15 minutes later. 2 figures walking down the gangway onto the pier. He had a small canvas bag. She had a beach tote and a sun hat. They looked from above like any couple on holiday. They had no luggage. Why would they? They thought they were coming back. Before they reached the bottom of the gangway, Janet stopped and looked back up at the ship. Just for a second. Then Christopher said something to her and she turned and followed him onto the pier. They walked toward the striped market awnings and disappeared into the crowd. I watched until I couldn't see them anymore. Then I went inside. There was a knock. My sister holding 2 coffees. I saw them get off, she said. You're really doing it. I'm really doing it, I said. Sit, watch the harbor with me, it's a good view. But first I had a few calls to make. I picked up the cabin phone and called guest services. This is Katherine Sanders, primary holder. My 2 additional guests have just gone ashore for the day. I'd like to confirm the disembarkation flags are active. A pause while the man checked. Confirmed, Mrs. Sanders, both flagged. Their boarding credentials will not scan for re-entry. The ship departs at 5 p.m. sharp. Thank you, I said. And one more thing. I'd like to clear the second cabin, Ms. Waverly's, and have everything in it, including her documents, sent to the port office under her name. She won't be needing it aboard. I'll send housekeeping right now. Perfect, I said. Then I started to clear the suite. I did it slowly, carefully. I packed every one of Christopher's things into his suitcase. His shaving kit, his shoes, his chargers, his ridiculous travel pillow, the linen shirts, the watch box. I found things in his bag I wasn't supposed to find. A receipt for a hotel suite, paid deposit for after the cruise, the one I'd seen on his phone. A second receipt, a jewelry store back in Hartwell, dated in May, a necklace I never received, and a folded printout of the cruise itinerary with Janet's fake name highlighted in yellow. He'd highlighted it, like a kid planning a field trip. My sister read over my shoulder and made a sound in her throat. He planned all of it, on paper. On paper, I said, he's very thorough. It's almost his best quality. I packed it all. Then I found his passport in the cabin safe, behind the empty box where my stolen earrings used to sit. I set it aside and called the desk again. I asked them to deliver his passport to the Port Authority office on shore, along with his luggage. Janet's things and her own documents had already gone ashore when housekeeping cleared the second cabin, sent to the same office under her name. I'm not cruel. I just wanted them off my ship, not stuck in a foreign country with no papers. That's more than he deserves, my sister said. It's exactly what he deserves, I said. He gets to go home. Eventually, the long way, with her, and no money, that's the whole sentence. I left nothing of theirs in the cabin. By noon, both suitcases were zipped and sent ashore to the port office with a note, to be collected by Mr. Christopher Sanders and Ms. Janet Waverly. Then the cabin was just mine. For the first time all trip, it was only mine. At 1 o'clock, my sister came by. She sat on the bed and looked at the 2 empty closets. They're really not coming back, are they? She said. They went shopping, I said. Last I heard, they had all day. Kath, she was half horrified, half delighted. You're leaving him in a foreign country. He left me at our own dinner table, I said. Twice. He left me off the excursion. He left me out of his own life and brought a stranger into it. I'm just returning the gesture, with water in between. She was quiet for a second, then, good. At 1:30, the cabin steward came by to collect the second cabin's linens. He'd been on our deck all week. He'd seen everything, the robe, the earrings, the chair, the dinners. He paused at the door. Mrs. Sanders, he said carefully. The second cabin. Should I prepare it for new guests, or? It won't be needed again, I said. Strip it, air it out, whoever stayed there is gone. He gave the smallest nod, a nod that said he understood more than he'd ever say out loud. Of course, ma'am, enjoy the rest of your voyage, you've earned it. I almost laughed. Even the steward knew. At 2, Christopher's text started. The first one was light. Hey, this town's great, having a good talk with Jay, back by 4, I didn't answer. At 2:30, you doing okay? Don't be sad, we're going to fix everything. I didn't answer. At 3, the tone shifted. Hey, my card won't work at any of the shops here. Did you do something to the cards? Need cash for a taxi back to the pier. My sister read it over my shoulder. He's figuring it out. Slowly, I said. He was always slow with anything that wasn't about himself. Another text. Janet's card declined too. We tried to buy water and they took it back off the counter. This is humiliating. Fix it. Humiliating, my sister read aloud. He wants to talk about humiliating. He'd know, I said. He's an expert. He gave a master class all week. I watched the messages stack up and I sipped a coffee on the balcony and I did not answer a single one. At 3:30 he called. I let it ring. He called again and again. 6 times. At 3:45 the texts turned frantic. Katherine, none of my cards work. Janet's don't either. We have no cash. We're an hour from the pier and we can't even get a taxi. Call a me. Then, this isn't funny. The ship leaves at 5. Then, Katherine. I finally typed back 4 words. Better start walking then. The phone exploded with calls. I turned it face down on the table and watched the harbor. At 4:15 I saw them. 2 small figures hurrying down the long road toward the pier. He was ahead, half running, jacket off now, waving. She was behind, struggling in sandals, the sun hat gone, the beach tote banging against her leg. They'd walked the whole hour back in the heat, because not one card, and not $1 between them, would summon a cab. The gangway was still down. The crew was beginning the departure checklist. Christopher reached the bottom of the gangway at 4:40. I could see him from the balcony, see him hand his crew's card to the crew member at the scanner. I saw the crew member swipe it. I saw him swipe it again. I saw Christopher's arms go up, the shouting start, the way he pointed up at the ship, at the balconies, looking for me. The card wouldn't scan. It would never scan again. He was the primary's guest, and the primary had flagged him off at the final port, and the system did exactly what it was built to do. Janet caught up beside him, breathless, and tried her own card. The crew member shook his head. She turned and looked up at the ship, at all the balconies, hundreds of them, not knowing which one I was on. I knew which one I was on. I stood at the railing in plain sight. Christopher found me. Across 40 feet of dock and 3 decks of air, he found my face. And he understood, finally, completely, all at once. Katherine, the whole pier heard it. Katherine, the card won't work. Tell them who I am. I leaned on the railing. The afternoon sun was warm. The harbor was the color of glass. I did tell them who you are, I said, too quiet for him to hear. That's exactly the problem. A crew member at the desk was speaking to him now, calm, official, pointing toward the port office where his luggage and passport waited. Christopher wasn't listening. He was still shouting up at me. "You can't do this." "That's MY ship. That's MY cabin, Kat Chirani." Down on the dock, Janet had stopped shouting. She'd sat down on her beach tote, right there on the stone pier, head in her hands. Christopher was still arguing, jabbing his finger at the crew member, at the port officer who'd come over now, at the sky. The port officer said something and pointed to the office building at the end of the pier, the one with their luggage, their passports, the note with both their names. Christopher read the note. Even from 3 decks up, I saw his shoulders drop. The engines below me changed their pitch. A low rumble climbed up through the soles of my feet. Somewhere above, a horn sounded, long and final. The gangway began to rise. Christopher lunged for it. A crew member caught his arm, calm, firm, and held him back at the edge of the pier. The gangway lifted clear of the dock and folded up against the white hull. The last thing I heard before the horn drowned him out was my own name, screamed across the water, getting smaller. The ship began to move. The pier shrank to a white line. Then to nothing. I stayed at the railing until the harbor was just a memory behind the wake. Then the cabin phone rang. It was the front desk. "Mrs. Sanders, we have a gentleman at the port office trying to reach the ship. A Mr. Christopher Sanders. He's quite insistent. He's asking us to turn around." "Ships don't turn around for a Miss-shore excursion," I said. "No, ma'am, they don't." "Then there's nothing to discuss. Thank you." I hung up. The phone rang again 4 minutes later. Same desk, different problem. "Ma'am, he's now claiming you've stolen his passport and abandoned him. The port authority has been in touch with us." "His passport was hand-delivered to the port office 2 hours ago," I said. "With his luggage and his companions. You have my note on file." A pause, papers shuffling. "Yes, I see it here. Everything was delivered. He has his documents." "Then he has everything he needs to get himself home," I said. "He's a grown man. He planned this whole trip himself. He highlighted the itinerary." The desk clerk did not ask what I meant by that. An hour later, Carol called on the satellite line. "He's already found a way to reach me," she said, almost impressed. "Called my office from a payphone at the port, reversed the charges. My assistant accepted it just to hear what he'd say." "What did he say?" "He threatened to sue you for theft, abandonment, and emotional cruelty. Then he asked if you'd be reasonable and wire him $2,000 for a flight home." Carol paused. "In the same phone call, threat, then a request for money. He doesn't even hear himself." "He never did," I said. "I told him to put everything in writing through counsel," Carol said. "And I reminded him that I have the forged spousal consent form, the April loan, and a documented timeline of him draining a marital account to fund an affair." He went very quiet. Then he hung up. "And the money, my money." "Locked, yours, the court order holds. He cannot touch the house equity and the travel fund is in your name alone." She let that sit. "Katherine, you did everything clean, every single step. You have nothing to be afraid of." "I'm not afraid," I said. And for the first time in 16 years, it was completely true. "One more thing," Carol added. "The bank investigator called. The April loan, the forged signature, they're treating it as fraud on their end too, separate from us. He may not just lose the divorce, he may have a criminal problem." I sat with that. 16 years of marriage, and he'd sign my name like it cost him nothing. "Do we push the criminal side?" I asked. "Your call," Carol said. "We don't have to. The leverage alone settles the divorce in your favor." "But it's there if he gets brave." "Hold it," I said. "Like the earrings. Some things you keep just so the other person knows you have them." Carol laughed softly. "You've changed, Katherine." "No," I said. "I just stopped pretending I hadn't." That evening, Janet called the ship. I don't know how she got a phone, borrowed it probably. The desk patched it through because she claimed it was an emergency. "You left us," she said. Her voice was shaking. "You actually left us on a pier." "You left me at my own dinner table," I said. 3 nights running. "I have no money, he has no money. We had to beg a shop owner to let us charge our phones." "Did you?" I said. "He's blaming me," she said, and now she was crying. "He's telling everyone at the port this is my fault. He said he never loved me, that I was a distraction." 8 months. He called me a distraction. That sounds like him, I said. She was quiet, sniffling. Then, you knew last night at your door, you told me to take my time ashore. You knew he wouldn't get back on. I told you not to rush, I said. I told you he'd hurt you. I gave you more warning than he ever gave me. Why, she asked. Why warn me at all? I'm the other woman, I wore your earrings, I sat in your chair. Because you were a tool he used, I said. I don't punish the hammer, I punish the man swinging it. You'll figure out which one you were soon enough. She cried harder. Then, smaller, he's already trying to get the shop owner's daughter to pay for his taxi. He's flirting with her, while I'm standing right here. And there it is, I said. 8 months and you finally see it. Took me 16 years, you're faster than me. What do I do? She whispered. Go home, Janet, alone. Don't lend him $1. Don't share a cab, don't let him follow you. He'll have a new distraction by the time you land. I paused. Keep the earrings, sell them, buy your own ticket. That's the only smart thing left to do. There was a long silence on the line. I'm sorry, she said finally. I know, I said. It doesn't help me, but I believe you. She hung up. I never heard from her again. But I heard later, from the port records Carol pulled, that Janet flew home that same night alone and Christopher did not. He stayed 2 more days trying to charm strangers into covering his fare. At 9 that night, he got through to me directly. He'd borrowed a shop owner's phone and the desk, not recognizing the number, patched it to my cabin before I could stop them. I almost hung up. Then I decided I wanted to hear it. Katherine, his voice was raw. Okay, you made your point, you win, I'm sorry, is that what you need? I'm sorry, now turn the cards back on and book me a flight. No, I said, I'm stranded in a foreign country with no money. Yes, I said, you are. You're my wife's. I was your wife at dinner when you sat your mistress in my chair, I said. I was your wife when you signed my name on a loan against our house. Where was the wife thing then? Silence. Then lower, the charm gone. You cold, you actually planned this. You let me have my whole week. You let me have 16 years of yours, I said. I think I came out ahead. I will take you for everything, he hissed. I'll tell the court you abandoned me, I'll. Tell the court, I said. Carol's waiting. Bring the forged consent form. Bring the April loan. Bring the receipts you highlighted in yellow. The judge loves a man who plans. The line went quiet. I could hear the harbor behind him, gulls, a vendor calling out prices. Where am I supposed to sleep tonight? He said finally, small now. You brought someone to keep you company, I said. Oh, that's right, she already flew home. I let it land. Good night, Christopher. I hung up. He didn't call back. The shop owner probably wanted the phone returned. The captain's number 2 came to my cabin before dinner the next evening. A kind older officer with silver at his temples. Mrs. Sanders, he said, I want to confirm you feel safe and that everything has been handled to your satisfaction. It has, I said. The 2 guests are ashore with their belongings and documents. There's nothing irregular about a primary holder adjusting a booking. He hesitated. Off the record, ma'am, in 30 years at sea, I've watched a great many things happen on the last night of a cruise. I've rarely seen one handled so quietly. I find quiet works best, I said. It does. He gave a small bow. There's a balcony table reserved for you tonight. Champagne, compliments of the ship, the good bottle, not the one your husband tried to buy on a dead card. I almost smiled. Even the crew. Especially the crew, ma'am, he said. We saw the whole week, too. He left. My sister came in 5 minutes later, holding her phone, eyes wide. Kath, it's on the family group chat. Aunt Linda's asking why Christopher posted a video begging for money to get home to his family. He's calling himself a victim. He's saying you abandoned him on vacation. Let me see, I said. She showed me. There he was on a cracked phone screen, sweaty, sunburned, on a stone bench at the port, telling the internet that his cruel wife had stranded him over a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding, I said. What do you want to do? My sister asked. Want me to post the truth? I have the receipts. The earrings, the loan, all of it. I looked at the video, at his sweating, panicked, performing face. The man who'd called me wallpaper, the man who'd forged my name. No, I said, don't post anything. But he's lying about you. Let him talk, I said. He's standing on a pier begging strangers for taxi money while his mistress flies home without him. That's not a story I need to tell. That's a story that tells itself. I took the phone, muted the family chat, and set it face down on the bed. Besides, I said, the truth comes out in court, with a judge on the record, not on Aunt Linda's group chat. My sister stared at me, then she started to laugh, the kind of laugh that's been held in for 3 days. 16 years, she said. I kept waiting for you to break. You never broke. I broke a long time ago, I said. I just didn't tell anyone, and then I stopped. The horn sounded once more far off as the ship turned its bow toward open water, toward home. My home now, just mine. I picked up the cabin phone one last time and called the front desk. This is Mrs. Sanders, I said. Any further calls for me from shore, I won't be taking them. For the rest of the voyage, please hold all messages. Of course, ma'am, the clerk said. Enjoy your evening. The balcony table is ready whenever you are. I hung up. Outside, the sun was sliding toward the water, gold spilling across the waves all the way to the horizon. There was a knock. A steward with a silver bucket, ice, and one tall glass. One glass, not two. Where would you like it, Mrs. Sanders? He asked. I looked out at the open sea and the empty chair beside the railing where, for 16 years, someone else's needs had always come first. On the balcony, I said. Just the one glass. I'm celebrating alone tonight. I took the glass out to the balcony and watched the last of the land disappear. The sun went down slow and orange over the water. No one needed me to refill a drink. No one moved my chair. No one sat a stranger in my seat. For 2 more days at sea, the cabin was mine, the balcony was mine, and the quiet was the best thing I'd ever paid for. My sister joined me the first night, and we didn't talk much. We didn't need to. She raised her glass once. To the wallpaper, she said. To the wallpaper, I said. We drank. You know what gets me, she said. He still thinks he's the victim. He genuinely does. He always will, I said. That's the part that makes it easy. A man who can't see what he did can't see it coming either. She thought about that. Is that why it worked? Because he never believed you'd do anything. That's exactly why it worked, I said. He spent 16 years deciding I wasn't a threat. I just let him keep believing it 1 week too long. She laughed into her glass. The water slid by, dark and endless, carrying us home. The ship reached home port 2 days later. I walked down the gangway with my one suitcase, my sister beside me, and Carol waiting at the bottom with a folder under her arm. Welcome home, Carol said. Everything's filed. The order's signed. The house is locked. He can't get in. And the money's sitting in your account, drawing interest, exactly where you left it. She handed me a single key on a plain ring. New locks, new everything. Yours. We had coffee at the terminal while the other passengers streamed past with their tans and their souvenirs. Somewhere 1,000 miles behind us, my husband was begging a shop owner for a phone charger. Christopher made it home 5 days after the ship did. He flew standby on a ticket a cousin finally paid for, after 2 days of begging relatives and one humiliating video that got passed around the whole family. By the time he landed, the locks on the house were changed. Carol had arranged it. Legal, clean, with the court order behind it. His mother called me, the only one in his family who still took his side. You've ruined him, she said. He's living in a rented room. How could you? Did he tell you about Janet? I asked. About the cabin next door, about the loan against your son's own house with my forged name on it. She went quiet. I didn't think so, I said. Ask him, then call me back. She never called back. He stood on the porch of the home he'd borrowed against, and his key didn't turn. Just like a cruise card that wouldn't scan. I wasn't there to see it. I didn't need to be. I'd already watched that exact look on his face from 3 decks up. He called. I let it go to Carol. The divorce moved fast because I'd handed Carol a case built like a clock. The forged consent form ended any argument about the house. The April loan to Janet was ruled a fraudulent conveyance, money he'd taken from our marriage and given to his affair. The judge ordered it credited back to me, on top of an even split of everything else. He tried to delay it. He fired one lawyer and hired another, then couldn't pay the second. He filed a motion claiming the cruise account was solely his earnings. Carol produced 16 years of joint statements in one afternoon, and the motion died on the spot. He tried twice to settle privately. He showed up at the diner where Carol and I were meeting and slid into the booth uninvited. Let's be reasonable, he said. Drop the fraud thing, I'll sign whatever. We don't need the lawyers. You forged my signature once already, I said. I think we'll keep the lawyers. Katherine, come on, 16 years. You keep saying that number like it's a debt I owe you, I said. It's a debt you owe me, and it's coming due in that courtroom. He left the booth without finishing his coffee. He didn't pay for it either. I did. Last time, I told him, last cup I ever buy you. He sat across the courtroom in a suit that didn't fit anymore and tried, one last time, to perform. Your Honor, my wife emptied our accounts and abandoned me overseas. Mr. Sanders, the judge said, looking over her glasses. Your wife moved funds from a joint account she co-owned. You took a secret loan against a shared home using a signature that wasn't hers. I've read the file. Sit down. He sat down. I got the house. I got the recovered fund. I got the half of everything he'd spent 16 years assuring me was ours while treating it as his. And I got the one thing no court order can grant, the thing I'd actually sailed home for. I got to stop being afraid in my own life. Janet, I heard about once more. She sent a single letter, no return address, postmarked from 2 states away, 3 sentences. She'd sold the earrings. She'd used the money for a deposit on her own apartment in her own name for the first time in her life. And she said thank you not for the diamonds, but for the warning at the cabin door. I didn't write back, but I kept the letter. Some things you keep. I thought I'd hate her forever. The woman in my robe. The woman in my chair. But she was the only person in the whole story who ever said sorry and meant it. Christopher never did, not once, not even at the register counting coins. He apologized to get the cards turned back on. She apologized with nothing left to gain. That's the difference between them, and it took a cruise for me to learn it. The house felt enormous at first. 16 years I'd shared it, and now it was just me and the quiet. I painted the bedroom a color he'd always vetoed. I gave away the recliner he'd molded into the shape of himself. I took the diamond's empty box out of the safe and threw it in the trash, and I changed the safe code to a number that meant nothing to anyone but me. The first month, the silence felt like something missing. By the 3rd month, it felt like something returned. Carol and I still have dinner every few weeks. She says I'm a different person than the woman who called her about a second cabin booking at 6 in the morning. I tell her I'm not different. I'm just finally the size I always was without someone standing on top of me. You scare me a little now, she said once, half joking. Good, I told her. It's about time I scared somebody who wasn't me. Christopher landed in the worst spot of all. The bank's fraud investigation didn't disappear when the divorce ended. He spent what little he had left on a lawyer of his own, settled the criminal exposure with restitution and a record, and moved into a rented room across town in Hartwell. I saw him once, months later, at the grocery store. He was counting coins at the register for a single bag of food. He looked up and saw me with my cart, my house keys, my comm. Katherine, he started, can we just... There's nothing to fix, I said. You taught me that on the ship, when you raised your glass to her instead of me. He didn't have an answer. He never did when it wasn't about himself. I paid for my groceries and left him counting coins, the same way he'd left me counting receipts in a notebook while he danced his mistress under string lights. He tried twice more after that, a long email about closure, a voicemail late one night slurring about how I'd destroyed a good man. I forwarded both to Carol and never listened to the rest. The last I heard, he'd asked a mutual friend whether I'd ever consider getting coffee just to talk. The friend told him what I'd say before I even said it. The answer was the same as a cruise card at the gangway. It doesn't scan anymore. It never will again. I used some of the recovered money to do the one thing I'd wanted for years and he'd always called pointless. I booked a trip, a real one, alone on purpose by choice. A small island, a quiet hotel, a balcony over the water. I sat on that balcony the first night with a glass of wine and watched the sun go down over a sea that didn't belong to anybody. No one moved my chair. No one took my drink. No one toasted a stranger 4 feet from my face. I'd finally gotten the vacation he promised me 16 years ago. I just had to leave him on a pier to get it. That's the whole story. He brought another woman onto our family cruise, and he flaunted her, and he spent my money, and he forged my name, and he was so sure I was wallpaper that he never once looked at what was behind it. So I let him have the best week of his life. I let him toast his sunset. I let him believe, right up to the gangway, that he'd gotten away with all of it. Then I took the money, the house, the marriage, and the open sea, and I left him standing on a pier with a beach bag, a stranger, and no way home. People ask me if I feel guilty. Stranding a man in a foreign port. They say it like it's a hard question. It isn't. He chose the woman. He chose the cabin next door. He chose to call me wallpaper to her face on the balcony of a ship I paid for. I just chose the door. These days, I sit on my own back porch most evenings, in the house that's only mine now, with one glass and no one to refill it for. The neighbor asked me last week if I get lonely out here by myself. I thought about the man counting coins across town. I thought about the empty chair on a balcony at sea and how it was the most peaceful thing I'd ever looked at. No, I told her. I tried the other thing for 16 years. This is better. The sun went down over my own backyard. I raised my glass to it, just the one glass, exactly the way I like it. Stories like this leave a few quiet truths behind. That the people who decide you're invisible are the ones who never see it coming. That real power rarely raises its voice. It just waits and keeps the receipts. That the woman they replace you with is usually the next one they'll leave on a pier. And that walking away with your dignity is worth more than any account you could drain. Have you ever stayed calm while someone underestimated you and quietly let them? If you enjoyed this story, hit like and subscribe, and we'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments.